This broadcast is brought to you live from Eric Sanchez's basement and studio. So some of the things that came up in this scramble is I got to learn how to set up my art studio that I would normally have over in Oakland in a basement. I also started out earlier in the garage, um, and it got too hot, and the equipment got hot. So now I'm here in the basement. I'm going to share with you things that we've been thinking about both in our department and also in my conversations with employees and students at LMC. So, looking at this, I think we have an opportunity here. I think we have an opportunity to communicate to our environment, communicate to our employees, our students, our public that we are learning safe at LMC. And what does that look like? Your health is our first priority. This is not a criticism. This is more along the lines of how can we pull all of the energy that's going on and all these different silos that are happening, and collectively get this moving forward. I know that we do need a plan, and I do know that it's hard to create a plan when you have too many cooks in the kitchen. But we're at a point with the pandemic where we know in watching how our governments handled it and then the difference with our state and how they're handling it and how Contra Costa is handling it, that this is a time in our life where we don't get the choice to wait until the solution comes from another institution. We actually have to create it. So I've been doing things in the sidelines since the spring semester, and I know that there's a lot of other programs and departments that are doing the same thing. So in reviewing that, I think we have the following to work with. Which types of masks are best at preventing the spread of the coronavirus? I think this visual is really helpful for understanding what is the day-to-day environment going to be like in on campus, right? So we'll continue with this quick video.
Several Georgia communities are now requiring face masks in public, but which type is the best? As researchers at Florida Atlantic University show us, not all face coverings are created equal.
These researchers were not trying to create the perfect model of droplet and aerosol spread through masks. They really set out to create a practical and visual demonstration of the performance of 3 different masks. A mask made of a folded handkerchief, a homemade mask made of 2 layers of cotton and fabric, and a simple dome mask. Have a look.
Using a mannequin head and fog maker to create a visible aerosol highlighted by a green laser, the researchers created a simulated cough. A light cough without any face covering spreads the aerosol mist a short distance, but a simulated heavy cough without a face covering expelled aerosol 3 feet away within 2 seconds and 6 feet away by 11 seconds. They also showed the effect a light breeze had on the aerosol spread. While the breeze does disperse the aerosol, it moves the particles downwind. Now, looking at the spread of the aerosol with a folded handkerchief or bandana to block it, you can see that it leaks a significant amount of aerosol through the mask face and at the top edge. Using a homemade stitched fabric mask with a simulated cough found a much better reduction in the amount of aerosol spread into the air. The spray doesn't go much beyond 3 inches from the mannequin face, but there is still leakage at the top of the mask. Now finally, the researchers used an off-the-shelf cone-type mask. It's important to point out that although it has the same shape as some N95 respirators, this is not an N95 respirator. Now interestingly, the amount of aerosol that penetrates the front of the mask travels farther than the aerosol from the hand-sewn mask. And again, there is leakage from the top of the mask.
So wow, yeah, it's a bit unnerving seeing that's the environment we're going to be working in, and some of us are currently working in. So in thinking about this, wow, that starts to bring up a lot of questions. I am personally guilty of using the bandana mask, and it really gets me thinking about what things have been going on over the past 20 years. So we've had to push and push and push and crowd more students into a tight space. So part of the things that we're dealing with is we have a high number of students in a small space, working space, and this is an example of an art lab, a regular painting class that might happen, where you have 30-something students crowded in a space that they need, a certain amount of space to actually work physically, unlike, if it's in a regular lecture classroom where you just need enough space for either your computer or your note taking. Um, so currently, our message is, if we're fiscally responsible, then we can provide the best opportunities for learning, and and we are also being safe in the process. And I think that's the current message we're kind of projecting to the public, to our employees, and to our students. Like, we're trying to provide the best opportunities for them, and we're finding the money to do that. I think in this pandemic, though, we have to shift our priorities. So, what should our message be during this time in dealing with COVID and knowing we're in this for at least a couple years, right? So, what would it look like if safety's first? Learning comes after we're safe, and our fiscal responsibility will actually shine due to our practice in safety and creating a great learning environment. What does that mean? I think students, because we have three areas we're serving. We're serving students, we're serving we have employees on campus, and then we have the public that comes in that are not, a student or an employee. So we have these three different areas where there's variables, right? So I think if we have a transparency of safety, and we are acknowledging that we're in this together, and we're united in our practice, that's going to help keep our students, our employees, and our public coming to LMC. So what does transparency of safety mean? I think it's more about, I'm talking about the spirit of it, right? Because there's all kinds of, we can go into a lot of details on how to actually implement every little bit, but I think this is the bigger picture. Bigger picture is, I know I'm going to be safe at LMC, and I know my family's safe when I come home from LMC. And that should be a regular statement that a student can say, that a faculty can say, an employee, someone who's working, whether that's custodial, whether that's maintenance, whether that's IT, whether that's A&R, counseling, all areas, math lab. There's just, we want to make sure that people feel safe at our campus. I think this is going to happen if we have the spirit of we're in this together, meaning I care about you, you care about me. We're going to make sure we are all safe. So I have this quote that's from EdSource. This is on the economic recovery will be more like a Prius, puttering along too slowly for some, but getting us where we need to go. Well, yeah, that's a reality. We don't know if this, if the vaccines will be successful, if they'll be safe. We don't know how long this is going to take. So with that in mind, I think we have to put in some practices on what can we do to keep our system moving, but also be mindful of the people we work with on a day-to-day basis. So safety, right? This isn't the safety card. This is like, what could we do? I think we just need to be consistent, period. I mean, I think it's really that simple that, whether I'm walking into A&R, right, to sign up for a class, that I hear the same thing in the same voice and communication in that space, and that's the same message I hear in the library, that's the same message I hear in the art lab, and that's the same message I hear as an employee if I come in and I'm on a night shift, right? So I think all of this matters, and I think it works if we feel safe. We're going to continue to come to LMC. We're going to keep our workers. We're going to keep our students. We're going to keep the public in the good spirits. But none of this happens if we have favorites. So there is no one special. We're all in this together, and we cannot play favorites with people's lives. Period. That's it. Modifications of protocols, what does that mean? I'm looking at the concept of what New Zealand's doing, right? And I think this is how we can approach it, and it's the same way our state is approaching it. We have these right now we're on a dimmer switch, right? So Newsom has mentioned that we're going from level 2 to level 3. So we're going from reduce to restrict. So looking at levels, right, we have these various levels of level 4 being lockdown, level 3 restricting, level 2, they're getting a little lighter, level 2's reduce, and level 1's prepare. So let's take a little look and break down where we are as an institution. Um, so thinking about SWOT, we got our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and threats. So what are our strengths? I find that we have a lot of dedicated employees. We are also very adaptable, as proven by this last spring semester and the summer semester. That our employees are adaptable, our faculty is adaptable, our student workers adapted. We had a lot of change happen in very little time, and I think we actually did that. We handled that situation rather well. Not in the timeline I'd like, but I think we did good with what we had. We also have a huge willingness to adopt something new if we believe it's going to help our institution. So what are our weaknesses? We have silos. That's always that's always going to kind of happen. But I mean, in when we're talking about safety and we're talking about pandemic, having a silo doesn't really help the community. So we have to really think about that weakness. We have independent protocols. What's happening in EMT is different than drama. It's different than art. It's probably different than what's going on in the math lab, and it's probably different than what's going on in the reading and writing center. So we don't have that consistent stream of communication. And always, always, no matter what we do, a small percentage of people are going to object and fight us all the way through it. Um, but the thing is, that's a small percentage. Opportunities. We have an opportunity to actually think about what does it mean to keep our people coming to LMC. And part of that is actually having some strict protocols in place and ready for when that dimmer switch happens. Um, I think we will have consistent enrollment increases if we are transparent with our safety measures. Especially during these next 2 to 3 years, it's going to be crucial. I think what we see is the CSUs, the UCs, the private colleges are all going to be hurting in this. Community colleges in general should see a bump. Now, this is what's as of today's knowledge of looking in what's going on with the student responses, nationwide, what our own students are saying, and then what some of the surveys are coming up back with results. People don't, people don't want to spend 50,000 a year to learn remotely, and then also pay for that apartment rental, right? So a lot of students are talking about going back home and learning locally. So I think we have an opportunity to learn safe and to learn local. The threats that we have is we can't force anything on anyone. If you don't want to wear a mask, I can't put the mask on you, right? There's no way I can force you to do that. But I think we have an opportunity to give students the power, employees the power in their area to say, you know what, it's not safe for our group. We'd like you to come back at a different time and get equipment that works for you, or you have the opportunity to learn this class 100% online, right? If the mask does not work for you. So I think that's an opportunity, right? Even though it's a threat. Our independent protocols do create uncertainty. So when I was referencing earlier that one area is doing one thing, another area is doing another thing, think about the message and the communication that gives to our employees and that communication it gives to our students. If I'm a student and I have to remember 5 different protocols because I'm using the library, using the reading and writing center, and I'm taking 2 different labs and having to go to A&R, that is very overwhelming. And it doesn't make sense. We shouldn't have different protocols in each area. So what's our plan when the first person tests positive or a big influx of people test positive because of our practice at LMC? So in this real life example, this is someone who worked for an organization in Pittsburgh, lives in the local area, right? They're at work, and then on a Saturday they weren't feeling well, and they weren't sure, paranoia sets in, anxiety, but it's like, you know what? I need to get tested just to make sure that my workers are safe, right? This person is managing other people below him, but also is kind of in the middle, right? So that he has supervisors or upper management. So they're trying to figure out, okay, what do I do? Okay, let's talk to my group. He talks to his group. Guess what? Um, Nobody knows where to get tested. They direct him to the Contra Costa Health, the county health website. They're like, okay, so I got to find out where to go get tested. And this was not that long ago. This is in beginning of this month. After he finds out where to go, he's like, okay, I'm trying to find somewhere close. So he went to COVID testing in Pittsburgh. Um, so this is Saturday. He can't get something scheduled until Tuesday. So not on Saturday, not on Sunday, not on Monday, but Tuesday. So this is our local area. Let's think about like what is our employee and our student experience going to be. Um, so 3 days later from Tuesday, so now it's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That's when he gets a call. He misses the call, tries to call back, can't get any information for 3 business days later. That ends up being from Friday to then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? 3 days later, it's like finally here's something back. That is almost a week and a half from the initial like date he wasn't feeling well. Luckily, this case happened to be that he was negative, did not test positive. So perfect opportunity. But here's the downside. His organization didn't know where to get testing. His organization, he was the first one in his organization to even try to get a test. So let's put ourselves into the experience of I'm in a faculty, and we're trying to give advice to someone's not here. I don't know where to send people, so I have to give advice to this person in front of me. Maybe it's my coworker, maybe it's a student. Say, well, I guess go to Contra Costa account. And like, what is going to be sort of like a quick and easy prompt and saying like, you have this option or you can do the following, right? Now, what if that particular person tested positive? The state guidelines, the county guidelines, and the nation guidelines say that, you know what, if you're asymptomatic, you went in, you got the test. If you don't have a fever, if you're feeling okay, come into work. That's the current recommendation. If he tested positive and is now, say it's faculty, I end up testing positive, but I was okay to go to work because I don't have symptoms, and I spread that. Was that the right thing to do, or should we ask that person to maybe stay at home until they get their results? Those are the things that I think are little tiny cues that we need to be really confident on. So what does that look like? I think this is how I'm approaching it from our area and what I think makes sense. I'm sure people have already worked on this. The problem is because of the lack of communication, I'm reinventing the wheel. So what's next in our area? So I find that we need to work on our communications of the stages for working on campus. I think we need to have one single system, different levels, and know what level we're in at what time. We also need a screening process. We need an app that, if let's just say it's visual and quick and easy. It has a date, it has a color coding, and it says like a check or a no that a student and an employee can show someone. Right? I can pull up my phone, I can show you, and then I can do a heat test at the same time. That would be really important, especially if we're in a restrict level. Right? And I think these would modify according to what level we're in. But I think having the app as a screening as an everyday thing would be smart until we have a vaccine that is proven safe. We also want to protect our most vulnerable. So high traffic areas with the public. Think of the library and how that's organized, right? Whether you're an employee or a student coming in there, it's open space. It's kind of, it's really big open space, which is good and bad. It's closed, which means that there's, we don't have like, big windows that open up. And then let me give you an example of like A&R, right? A high traffic area where you have the public coming in to sign in for classes. You have counseling there, this one-stop shop, which is really good, but in a pandemic, it's a little bit of a nightmare. And then how are you going to keep those employees safe and those students safe if people have the option to wear a mask or not wear a mask, right? So you have someone coming in here which might just have, might have allergies but is sneezing and they don't have a mask. what do you say to that person? Other things that I think we can do is like this does depend on faculty and whether they can successfully do this with their course. But I think in the art department, we might have to look at bringing in only 50% of the students in at a time for a hybrid class, meaning we split up the class, right? If we got 32 students, then 16 will come in on 1 week. The other 16 are at home working on their design work. Then on the next week, we alternate, and then that allows less students in the classroom and in the same space, a less variety of students, less variables over a week period. And then that gives us a 3-day, weekend, from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to be able to do any sort of additional cleanup, to allow the HVAC to do its thing. And the other thing that I feel like what we do need in the transparency is I do share that floor with a lot of people. So I think knowing that our HVAC is is maintained and we are saying that to the space, I think that's really important. We want to do as much possible remote until a vaccine is safe and ready to use. So I'm kind of leaving you with this. I had to say something because it is on my mind on a daily basis. And I have been doing all this other work for our facility and trying to reorganize the space, what sort of protocols would make sense for reentry. And we're also like trying to include this on our learning management software in Canvas, where we have a little area on COVID protocols. So you got my email, esanchez@losmedanos.edu. I'll place it in the video next. And if you need to reach out to me, I'll even leave my cell phone. All right, thank you.